How's it going, guys? It's Poetry Son, and welcome to a new type of video on my channel, a top 5 video, where I'm going to be talking about the 5 nations that I think are the most fun to play as in Europa Universalis 4. Keep in mind that this is opinion-based, and not only that, but the criteria I used were nations that were fun to play as, but also challenging. I also want to let you guys know that this was scripted. I wrote out a whole script beforehand so I could do my research, and hopefully you guys don't mind that. Hopefully it still sounds natural. Either way, let's go ahead and get started, and I hope you guys enjoy. Number 5, Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a nation in East Africa that starts as a Coptic nation surrounded by Sunni countries. As Ethiopia, you'll also start with a 655 ruler and an empire-level government, allowing you some quick early-game expansion. Being Coptic, you can either A, choose to switch to Sunni for an easier time fitting in with your neighbors, or B, stay Coptic, which allows you some cool new bonuses if you have the Rights of Man expansion. Also, if you take religious ideas, you'll never run out of CBs or areas to expand to. In the early game, you can expand pretty quickly, but once your ruler dies and the Ottomans grow a bit, you'll have some challenges, leading to a good and fun mid-game challenge. In terms of national ideas, some things to look forward to are infantry combat ability, core creation cost, and diplomatic reputation. And I would like to point out that, as you'll see soon, Ethiopia is also the only nation out of my top 5 that is not in Europe. I play almost entirely in Europe, so Ethiopia being on the list should be a sign of how fun they are. Number 4, Aragon. Aragon is much easier to explain than Ethiopia, but with just as many cool options. Being in Spain, but also with Mediterranean holdings, Aragon is heavily geared towards trade. As a player, you can't be put under a personal union by event, so take your time and take Castile's land using France as your ally. Once you've solidified your position in Iberia, there's several options for growth, which is one reason that I personally have played Aragon several times throughout my playing of EU4 in general. For one, you could travel across the Mediterranean and conquer the North African lands. Another option is to move into Italy and beyond, reforming the Roman Empire if you get that far. Or if you choose to, you could always go colonial and pour enough money into the Genoa node to fill a ship full of ducats. As for Aragonese ideas, the highlights are a bit of morale for your troops and a whole bunch of trade modifiers, including trade efficiency, trade steering, and global trade power. I've always enjoyed the trade in EU4, as you'll be able to tell from some of the future choices, so it makes sense that a trade-focused nation like Aragon would be in my top 5. Number 3, Austria. Little known fact, Austria starts with the largest army in Europe. Turns out being the emperor gives you a lot of bonuses to manpower. Austria is quite a fun nation to play as, largely because there are a few ways to play them that are all equally fulfilling. One option is to go the diplomatic route. Austria gets tons of events giving them chances for PUs over Hungary and Bohemia as long as you can play your cards right. Not only that, as emperor you have a good chance of inheriting Burgundy should it fire before the year 1500. Another option is to go full-out conquest. As long as you stay emperor, you can expand into Germany with little resistance, or you can try your hand at expanding into Italy, of which there is also a challenge of trying to defeat the Shadow Empire event. Perhaps the most interesting way to go, however, is to play the Empire game, or the Emperor game, whatever you call it. If you're quick and efficient, you can get the HRE formed in 150 years or less, and once formed you can be essentially unstoppable, even more so if you have Italy under your control still. Either way, Austria is a fun nation with a good start and lots of options, but also the mid to late game threats of France and the Ottomans, and possibly Poland and Russia. You should also not forget that you also are going to have some issues with the Protestant Reformation, or you could lose all your progress if you get flipped to reformed against your will. Either way, for national ideas, Austria is obviously incentivized to go the diplomatic routes. Highlights include a +2 to diplomatic reputation, an extra relationship slot, and even an idea that both increases imperial authority gain and reduces diplomatic annexation cost. Interestingly enough, the sort of game that Austria is meant for is not normally the style that I play. However, I've played Austria several times before and have enjoyed myself greatly with the personal unions and the HRE mechanics, and I felt that I deserved a place on this list because of that. Number 2, Prussia. What's not to love about Prussia? Anyone who has a couple hundred hours under their belt should definitely play them at some point in time, as they're a classic to play as with a good difficulty curve as well. Beyond the fact that Prussia can be formed from several different nations that each provide their own unique challenges, in the mid-game Prussia will most likely have to face Poland, the Emperor, and possibly a strong Denmark or Sweden as well. You'll also be Reformed or Protestant, and that presents its own issues too. However, get past that and Prussia is extremely powerful. With troops that can stack wipe 30 stacks or more even in the late game, Prussia is in a position where playing tall is viable, especially since the development in Germany is high as is. Not to mention, with the new content added in Rights of Man, Prussia has a special government type that benefits from playing tall. Either way, Prussia is challenging but rewarding, and most likely has a claim to being on any player's top 5 list. If you needed me to sell you more on it, Prussia's national ideas are S tier. Along with a nice tax boost early on, Prussia gets 20% morale boost, which is the same as Elan for France if you didn't know, 20% infantry combat ability, a 25% manpower boost, 5% discipline, and 2 ideas that help maintain and boost your army tradition. Prussia is fun, as most would agree, and I'm not different from those people. Due to the challenge they present, but the power they allow for, they're one of my favorite nations to play as, and that's why they're number 2 on this list. And last but not least, the nation I enjoy the most in EU4 and the top of our list today is the Netherlands. This answer may surprise some, but those who have played the Netherlands might understand why I have them ranked so highly. One thing that makes the Netherlands fun is the fact that the early game can be quite challenging. Play Holland and you'll have to work for your independence. Play one of the other minors and you'll have to take on Burgundy, whoever inherits Burgundy, or take on the fairly strong minors themselves if they happen to become independent. Once you form the Netherlands, there are a few options that you can do. The first thing that I would normally recommend is to consolidate the lowlands, conquering as much as you can from the other minors and possibly allying France to take on either Burgundy or Austria for the rest. Once you've finished, your finances will be set, especially since you own a large chunk of the English Channel trade. Not only this, the Netherlands has a unique type of republic which you should almost always take over your starting government. I won't explain all of the intricacies of the Dutch Republic, but essentially every election you're given a choice of 2 rulers, and normally one of them will be at least as good as an average republic leader, as the stats are mostly randomized. As with any nation, there are different things you could focus on. However, the Netherlands is through and through a nation focused around trade, and this is the reason I love them, as in my opinion they're possibly the best in the game for trade. With ideas geared towards trade and starting with a strong foothold in possibly the best trade node in the game, just by existing you'll be making a ton of money. This can be compounded in a good way if you go for colonial expansion. Colonize the eastern seaboard and the Caribbean, or work your way from West Africa to South Africa and eventually India and China. Either way, if you play smart, you can turn the relatively small nation of the Netherlands into a trade powerhouse, pouring money in from all over. Beyond this, you can supplement your colonial growth with expansion in Europe. Attack the French for some more of the lowlands, move into the HRE, which is of your culture group, attack Denmark for some Lubeck trade power, or even ally France and take over the British Isles for some insane trade income from the English Channel node. Because of these opportunities and giant potential rewards to be gained from taking them, the Netherlands is extremely satisfying to play as. However, as with all the nations I have on my top 5, the Netherlands also provides some unique challenges. As stated already, the early game can be fairly challenging, but the mid to late game will also present problems, such as France suddenly turning on you, the Emperor not appreciating the fact that you've left the Empire, and all the problems that come along with being Protestant if you choose to go that way, and I would definitely recommend that you should. In terms of national ideas, the Netherlands is fairly well balanced. Starting with a 50% boost to naval force limit gives you an edge over potential rivals such as England, and having a boost to siege ability and landfire damage will help you with any conquest you start in Europe. Beyond this, you get an additional merchant, trade efficiency, and inflation reduction to help out with your trade and colonial ambitions. Overall, the Netherlands is a challenging but fun nation to play as. The reason I have them as my number 1 nation in EU4 is mostly due to the fact that they can be played in a variety of ways. By focusing on Europe, you can create a nation with a strong army and dominant position, or you can forget about Europe almost completely if you're looking for a relaxing game of trade and exploration. Along with the large amount of unique and mostly really good events that you get and the unique mechanics of the Dutch Republic, the Netherlands allows you to expand in a number of ways unique for most European nations. After all, what other nation can play that tall yet also be such a strong trade and colonial power? Because they're so unique in that regard, the Netherlands is my favorite nation to play as and the top of this list. That's all for this top 5 video. Please leave suggestions for other videos like this that you might like to see in the future, and feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more if you enjoyed, and until next time, goodbye.